So this is a topic we haven't really prepped on because I want to hear your unfiltered thoughts. I didn't really want to discuss
Yeah,
it
no,
with you.
100%.
I wanted to discuss it with you now here in front of a camera because I would like to hear your thoughts. So, and I will say it comes up every so often. I was actually reminded about it by a leftist, someone that was angrily tweeting at me. Believe it or not,
Yeah.
I made the mistake of replying back. I was civil, but I made the mistake of replying back. It's usually better to just ignore them because now he's hate following me. I think, but. But yeah, I think that, or maybe they're non-binary. I don't know. But I said he, so you never know with the leftists. You never know how they identify, other than what they are in reality. So I think that the thing that was kind of in vogue when Trump had just left, when Biden got in, was the idea of, well, what if we have a national divorce? What if basically the red states we go our way, the blue states we go our way.
Yeah.
And have a cessation, in essence, of the United States and have different Americas. These states over here are one country, these states over here are another country. And it was interesting because I don't really listen to the Daily Wire much anymore, but when I was, Walsh and Candace Owens was still working for the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
We're talking with Andrew Klavan, I believe, and Ben Shapiro and maybe Jeremy Boring, and they were at some conference. It may have been CPAC or maybe it was Politicon. And they were talking about this. And Shapiro said, what I could see happening is de facto separation, but not by de jure. So we would still be the United States of America, so to speak. We would be, but people would know, well, over here, it's basically like living in another country. Over here, it's very different.
So you mean basically how it is right now?
Well, in essence, it would just exacerbate. It would continue to balkanize and get worse, not better.
Yeah.
I could actually see that, and I don't know if it would be sustainable, because what would happen would be, it would just be really, really difficult to say, and we'll get into that in a second. I would have concerns, for example, what do you do if you've got basically all the blue states just opening up the floodgates, having sanctuary cities everywhere, and then the red states being really hard line, because from a federal perspective, the president would be either very far left or very conservative.
Yeah.
I don't really know how good that would be. It would probably be better compared to what we got now, which is, barely left of center sometimes versus very, barely right of center with the sense of the Bush family and stuff. That would be kind of, that's kind of what we've had, kind of like this weak little democracy thing. That would be a little bit different, where it's a little bit more extreme on each side. But for example, again, this goes back to my concern. Whenever you get the far left guy in there, what if they do stuff that you really can't fix? Like what if they, for example, get in there and they start going after the red states? They start saying, well, we understand that for the longest time, Alabama has had a very conservative immigration policy, and we're going to change that because I'm the president and I'm going to do what I want, sort of thing. That would be a problem, right? That would be one problem of having it, only de facto, but not also de jure, because in a de jure thing where it's actually done by the letter of the law, where there are two countries, theoretically the right-wing version would be able to elect their own president who would actually reflect their values, then them over there could elect someone who reflects their values.
Right.
So that's kind of my introduction. We can continue to delve into it a little bit. We've got some time. What are your initial thoughts when you consider this?
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of think that we're there already. I mean, it's because I've got, for example, I got coworkers, and they would live up north and stuff. It's like, oh, it's totally different here than it is there, not just culture wise, but also like
not just how we talk.
Right. Yeah. Right.
What we eat.
And not just our sweet teas and what we eat and all that stuff, but also just the fact of the way we perceive politics. Like, your opinion is your opinion, my opinion is my opinion, and respectfully disagree on some things, and we agree on others, and cool, we go our separate ways. Versus like up north, it's a little different, in the sense of, no, you agree with me or you are Hitler, essentially.
Like in California, there's one video of a woman that went viral. She was literally screaming at the top of her lungs because the guy was preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Right, exactly.
Like, that's California politics.
Exactly.
It wouldn't really happen
versus
here,
hopefully. Versus here, if you don't like that, you keep walking. I mean, you just keep on moving. You don't like what somebody's doing. I mean, we've had protests here in downtown Greenville.
Right.
There's that I totally disagree with.
Of course.
Cool. But keep moving. As long as they don't get violent, cool. I disagree with them.
Sure.
But oh well, you know.
First Amendment's here.
Right, exactly. You know? Again, yeah, peaceful. So yeah, that's cool. I'm fine with it. Versus up there, it's you know, a little different, or you know, on the western side, it's a little different
the
too.
Left coast.
Yeah, the left coast. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I think we're kind of already there, and it's just gonna, you know, get worse. I don't foresee an actual ever like divorce ever happening. If anything is going to happen, it's just going to be a civil war, and it ends up just being within the cities and everything, and this, that, and the other. And furthermore, if we do have if we have a divorce, what are you going to do with the people that like actually agree with the one side that are already over here? And you know what I mean?
That becomes a problem. I understand.
Right. So that's my thing, is I just don't see it happening.
So in essence, what about the conservatives in California? Stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. And what about the liberals over here and stuff like that? So I mean, yeah. What do you do? You know, that's not to say like during the actual Civil War that there weren't people that like were against slavery, you know, in the South, and there weren't people that were for slavery in the North. Well, actually, matter of fact, the North did have slaves too. But anyway, aside the point. That's not to say that there weren't people on both sides, but majority of people. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't see it happening, and also I do think that Abe Lincoln was right in the sense of we are stronger together. But at this, so if we split, essentially the United States is done. We're dead, and you talk about the illegal problem being an issue. I mean, shoot, we're just going to be run by other countries.
Well, I think that what are you doing, boy? I think that you got to consider a couple of things. So, in the sense of there's a couple of things. So, objectively, of course, I wanted communism to come to an end.
Of course.
But the way that it happened in the USSR for the typical Russian person probably was really hard. Now, it didn't need to end. Of course it did.
Yeah.
But logistically, for example, getting people food on their shelves, there was a lot of big issues there. I would also worry that, okay, if the country were to split, truly split, stuff like that, counter argument to that would be, well, it's not really working right now. I mean, we've got, are we overall, is the population fed? Yeah, there's homeless people, of course, and there's people that don't have enough money. Yeah. But how far does that go when it comes to, for example, our culture falling apart, money being taken from us by force, taxation, going to Planned Parenthood? Okay, you and I, of course, furthest thing from pro-choice. Unfortunately, unless a Republican gets in there and, for example, defunds Planned Parenthood, there's a certain amount of our money that is going to the killing of babies.
Right.
When I think of that, I'm way more likely to go towards the national divorce, because theoretically we would have a right-wing government over us that wouldn't do that.
Right.
That sounds pretty darn good. Would there be potentially issues, with, you mentioned, what did you say, foreign countries doing something?
Yeah.
Right, but in the
strength in numbers is essentially where I'm going.
Well, so this is the only thing I would say about that, and maybe you're seeing something I'm not seeing. Is one thing, this is back in World War II, a big reason why, I forget his name now, I think it was Tokugawa, Iemitsu Tokugawa said, I don't really want to invade America, I'm paraphrasing, because there would be a rifle behind every blade of grass.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I would think that the people that would be ripe for the picking, so to speak, would be the blue areas, the left-wing governments, like let's say we do split, if we did,
100%.
They would be more ripe for the picking. Okay, are there left-wingers that have guns? Yeah. But way less.
But they're crazy. I'm just saying. I mean, the riots
they turn out those cats into the streets and they just start running at the Russians.
I mean, these riots prove.
I don't know, man. They have so many cats. If the Chinese invade, they may really, really want to go there.
Yeah.
Cat sells for a lot over in China. Cat soup. I'm just saying. That may be the reason alone for invading, let alone anything else. The lands.
Yeah.
All the cats and all the dogs, we got to eat them.
Yeah. Fair enough.
$4.99. Would you like some Chinese cat soup? So anyway, I'm making light of it, but the point would be, I would think that they would be more threatened than, for example, a right-wing government over us, because you and I and our ilk would be more willing to defend ourselves.
Oh yeah, no question.
And so I would say that invasion problem, it's not that it would be a zero possibility, but it will be less for us than for them.
And I understand what you're saying. I don't know. I think because here becomes the problem too. I mean, it still becomes a problem. Okay, that side gets taken over. That's cool, fine, dandy. But it makes our enemies a lot closer to us than
There's not an ocean
separating. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have nowhere to go, and then not to mention the ones on our side, on this coming side, don't like us either. So you're taking it from both sides now. So
that would be my issue. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead. I mean, yeah, that was it.
I was going to say my what I would contend is, what is the difference between having China basically here, versus having an extreme American left winger here, who can potentially run the country, versus if we're in a separate country, they can't really do that.
Yeah,
that would be my contention.
I guess slavery is the difference. I mean, there's definite.
I think you would be either way.
Right? Yeah,
under Xi Jinping or under, let's just throw her name out there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I think, one may be more watered down. Maybe that's your contention.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's kind of my contention is like, a different form of slavery.
But I would say in the long term, it really wouldn't be much of a difference.
I mean, yeah, maybe not.
Maybe AOC in 5 years or something.
Yeah.
But after her, post AOC, this, like you said, it's exacerbating. Kind of like you said, well, we're kind of doing a national divorce just without the titles right 100%. Now.
Yeah.
Down the road, 30 years from now, when you and I are a good bit older, our kids are starting to grow up. Let's just say, it may not be AOC, but it could be someone else.
Yeah.
That looks alarmingly like Xi Jinping. In that sense, having a separation legally as well as factually, I would say would be a good thing, because then if we have our own government over us that doesn't have these values, again, I don't understand. Well, just because the commonality of language, because really there wouldn't be a commonality of culture with this future left-wing dictator, let's just say.
Of course.
There wouldn't be a commonality of culture. There would be of language, and maybe in some sense of history, if she ties herself back to some people that used to live here. I don't know. I don't see much difference between that and like Xi Jinping's army being here. He'd be dead in 30 years. But
of course.
You see what I'm saying? I don't see a distinction really.
Yeah, no, and I mean I get that. And I guess I could kind of come to terms with that to an extent. Just, I don't know. I guess the difference would be eventually, like, at least the difference is like, let's say this, divorce, red, blue happens, the blue side eventually would like leave the red side alone. The red side eventually leaves the red side alone, in my personal opinion.
Well, you're talking about
staying within their boundaries.
Well,
there's no like invasion, right? Versus like China, there would be an invasion of continuation. All right, we conquered the blue, now let's go conquer the red. So that would be the difference as far as like China versus a blue territory or whatever.
Let's look at the first scenario you're laying out, where you say blue and red would leave each other alone.
In the senses of, since we have a national divorce.
Are you talking about in terms of de jure, like by law, like an actual like
yeah.
So in your opinion, if that were to happen, the left-wing government would leave the right-wing one alone?
That's
Where your concern would be if
because you have no law here anymore.
So the difficulty would be foreign occupation by China. At that point, rather than occupation by American left-wingers, it would be occupation by China would be the new concern.
Yeah.
That's what you're
pretty
saying.
Much just because I mean, the left would leave the right alone, in my opinion, because now we are now split. Whatever. All right, cool. The left sees us as stupid. Fine. Those idiots can do what they want, and we can do what we want. We say the same thing. You guys can do what you want. We're gonna chill over here, make ourselves better. Versus like China, no, we just want everybody. We just want everything. We want your land. We want everything. So, like, in turn, the expansion side of things is what I'm essentially concerned of too. Is just everybody essentially, that would be the difference. Is everybody dies versus those guys can just go do what they want and they mess their lives up. They chose that.
I think that some of it is the analogy is. Let's just use this as the analogy. If China taking over, let's just say, would be like a fire.
Yeah.
I would argue, and I don't think you would disagree with this, though we are currently in a boiling frog situation.
Yeah.
and maybe your point is we don't necessarily want to go out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Yes.
And I understand that. My point, I guess, would be I would rather have a separation and, okay, is there a possibility that this fire will come over here? I'm willing to accept there's that possibility that they might march in, try and take over California,
right?
And then march on Texas, march on South Carolina. But again, I would contend, though, that if we are our own separate country, we actually will have the ability to fend for ourselves. Whereas if we don't, like if we have a situation like with Biden, who has like actual criminal ties to China, we're being subverted from within. Whereas if we're our own country, theoretically, if this right-wing person, this right-wing president in Congress, they wouldn't allow that. So I think that if we had a national divorce, we would be able to fend for ourselves more realistically than if we don't. Yeah, that would be my conception. Right. And I understand where you're coming from. I do.
Yeah, for sure.
That would be a big concern. But I would think that if we had a really good, not a utopia, but a good area in the red states, the conservative states, the right-wingers, I would think that the men would be willing to defend it, and there would be a pretty big military. Yeah. Maybe not. I could be wrong about that. We might get lazy and complacent. That's definitely happened at times. Yep. Right. Look at us now. So, you know, exactly. But I would think that if we were to separate legally as well as by fact, that theoretically it would give us a better chance than staying in one country and having like a Joe Biden who's basically puppet of Beijing anyway. Yeah. So that's what I would say.
But in the long run, I mean, for me, it all comes down to hopefully none of that happens.
Of course.
And we stay united and eventually just keep fighting for, our country in the right direction.
Yeah. So. And really, ultimately, I think this is a good place to end. We've been going about an hour, if not a little bit more. Yeah. I think a good way to wrap up would be just to focus on religion and spirituality. Yeah. Because ultimately, if people don't come to Christ, we can come here and do this, and people will get something from it.
Yeah, for sure.
But what you and I both want is a revival, and that's really the big issue. People can talk about whatever it is. I mean, ultimately, I'm not completely like hands off when it comes to things like drug use. I think we can argue that the war on drugs has been fought wrong. I think we can. There have been severe problems with that. But you got to look at it as a deeper issue and say, why are people doing so much drugs? A lot of it is a void in their hearts.
Oh, yeah, no question. It's to fill a void. Yeah, no question.
And to distract themselves. And by the way, it's not just weed or crack or cocaine or methamphetamines. It's also has to do with alcohol or other substances people do. You can go and get a legal prescription for certain antidepressants, and sometimes that's useful and beneficial if someone's got a chemical imbalance that they were born with or something. But sometimes people are doing it because they don't want to actually think about the state of their soul.
100%.
And what we need, and you kind of know that because you have some background in psychiatry or psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are times where, people need that kind of help. But what I'm proposing is a multifaceted solution. The biggest one is faith. Right. And you and I, of course, would agree on that. And so I think one thing that's important for us to kind of push on this podcast and otherwise is the importance of turning from sin, turning to Christ. And so ultimately, I think if Trump wants to be successful, have an emphasis on that.
Right.
On, hey, I'm not your dad. I'm not going to, rule everything for you. Really, the only king is Christ.
For sure.
And so I think that's an important thing that he could emphasize, and Vance should too. And that's an important thing because we are not God. A lot of the lies of the left are your God.
Oh, yeah.
You can make the decisions. You can do what you want.
You are your own master, this, that, and the other.
And you can sin, and it really doesn't matter if you sin. Whereas
nobody should be able to tell you what to do.
Right. Yeah. Whereas on the right, we are against chaos, and we really want order. And a lot of that really stems from Christian values.
Yeah.
And belief that you don't have the right to kill that child just because you made it.
Right.
You don't have the right to put whatever you want into your body. Come on, mate. You can deal with the consequences. Right. And some of it may be legal, and some of it may be your health, and we're not going to come scoop you out of it because one thing that's taught in the Bible is responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And also we are not only individuals, we're also a collective. We're a flock in the sense of Christians are a flock. You are a sheep, but you're also a member of the flock. And so he's covering up my face, but so It's funny. Hey, boy. Yeah, I'm talking. But I think that's a good way to end it, unless you had other thoughts about anything we've covered or anything spiritually. Other than Instagram, is that the big thing that you're pushing? Is there anywhere else people can follow you separately?
I mean, personal training wise and stuff. Elevate underscore with elevate. I mean, elevate underscore with underscore Nate. Yeah, elevate with Nate on Instagram. So
I think that's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and what all do you do? So you do personal training videos, or is it pictures, or just motivation?
Motivation. I'm gonna start getting more active on there myself. I need to. Just with the new job and everything, it's been pretty hectic. But now that I've kind of found the balance, I'm gonna start doing tutorials on proper form, stuff like that as well, and just some other stuff. But motivation, trying to help people out, just in general, and kind of get that. Especially I kind of want to target men to an extent. I mean, I want to target everybody, but getting that getting rid of that victim mentality, and I feel that's what a lot of the gym does, is getting rid of that victim mentality. So get up and do it, thriving in disaster, and just stuff like that. So that's what eventually is going to come for the social media and everything. So yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you're pressing the like button. That's an important thing you can do for us for this podcast. If you're listening to this on Spotify, make sure you're following us here on Spotify. Go to YouTube and subscribe. Easy to find us. Look up the Zoo Nation podcast on YouTube. Find us on Facebook as well, Zoo Nation. As I said before, Instagram is zoo_nation_. And this has been Josh. And
I'm Nathan.
And we are pleased to bring this episode to you guys. Everyone have a great evening and take care.